walks among you.
Alright, hello everybody, YouTube community and whatnot. I kinda got an interesting, maybe a little bit different video, if you will, for this uh, Let's Talk kind of segment that I kind of do, and it's gonna be more of like a general open discussion like video where I kind of give my thoughts on why I think Overwatch is headed into the best time to be an Overwatch player. In terms of meta, in terms of gameplay, I think Overwatch is headed in a direction that is going to be just great for the game overall. And I know a lot of people may disagree with me, or I don't know, maybe it's just the change factor and whatnot, but yeah, I guess let's start jumping into it because there's a lot of points I want to make here, and I'll start with one of the first ones. And with Overwatch, what I'm really liking that they've been doing recently is they've been kind of actively trying to increase the power of some of these heroes that have not been like meta ever in like the history of Overwatch, or have been on the bottom for a long time. I mean, just look at like Hanzo, for example, and you can even see in the gameplay in the background, I'm playing him on my Smurf account, and he's incredibly viable. We end up winning this match here, and I do have some sick, crazy plays this game, but like Hanzo, they're just reworking Sim here soon and making her a defense hero. Like, how exciting is that? That's the first time any hero's ever switched roles. Like, that's crazy. And I mean, in my opinion, she always never really fit in the support spot. I even had a few games where I played with Sim one tricks, and I've tried to get my team to like have the Sim fill a DPS role instead of the support role, and generally when that happens, it worked better out for our team. But I guess that's more of another debate. But I mean, and they've even said they're reworking Torb, and all three of these heroes have one thing in common: they really have not been meta ever. So Blizzard's really trying to put their foot down and really get to the bottom of some of these heroes' issues and why they've never really seen a whole lot of play, and trying to fix that. And I think now with the Hanzo rework, he's incredibly viable. He has such power to him. I mean, and he's still skillful too. Like, maybe even more so, because you can't really rely on scatter to get free kills. And I know it's not free kills for scatter arrow, but it's generally a lot easier to get a kill with a scatter arrow than headshot someone with a regular arrow. And now he's got a more skillful option, which is his rapid shot arrow, which still requires a good amount of aim, and I mean, at a rapid pace too, which is kind of crazy. I mean, sure, you can spam it down chokes, but even still, like, if you're in an open field, nah. But with what they're doing with Sim, I mean, that's pretty crazy too. I think it might even make her a pretty powerful pick. I mean, she's definitely going to be better on attack with her whole turrets, like get shot, shooting into walls and stuff. And if they do that ultimate, that'll be interesting, because that will give her some tank-like quality, because you generally look to tanks that create your space, but there you go, now you have an ultimate that will grant you a whole lot of space, and that's coming from a defense hero now. That's actually pretty cool. And maybe now too that they're adding another defense hero in Symmetra, and she's almost going to be like a completely new hero in a sense. Maybe now they can, instead of maybe the new hero, what would it be, 28 or 29, I don't know, one or the other, but maybe the new hero could be like an off tank, because we haven't had an off tank added to the game in the history of Overwatch yet. The only tank added was Orisa, and she's a main tank. And I mean, if they do add a main tank, maybe they can experiment with trying to add one without a barrier, because I kind of think there is, like, if they added another tank with a barrier, that might cause some issues, because imagine the team running like a Winston, Orisa, Reinhardt, and then this new tank with another barrier. That almost feels like it'd be too much to get through for the team, and that'd be pretty boring, just shooting at all those barriers and stuff. But so if they did add a main tank, maybe they can try and experiment with someone without a barrier, which would be pretty cool. I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but I kind of want to have this kind of discussion format and stuff. And I really do hope the next hero is a tank, maybe Mama Hong, anybody. But anyway, let's move on to you know, as I was discussing with these heroes, these lower heroes, these kind of off meta picks become more viable. They still need to work on it a little bit, because there is still Bastion, that could probably use a little bit of love, at least in my opinion. But like Mei, she's been getting a little bit love. Reaper, my boy Reaper, even got some love, which is really nice too. But and another really cool thing that is going on with the Overwatch as of late too is it seems like they are trying to listen to feedback from people where everyone was getting tired of Dive. Dive had been meta for about 8 months. It's been pretty much the only thing run in the pro scene in all stages. Like there's been a couple maps where they've run a few other things here and there, but Dive for the most part has been like the meta. And in matchmaking, I know it's a little different because you had like Dive, which was still dominant in matchmaking, but you also had spam meta, which would be like Junkrat centric, which was pretty powerful, at least back in the old days, or I mean actually just like a season or two ago. But now with the addition of Brigitte and some of the changes that they've been doing with the heroes, in my opinion, I think Overwatch is headed for a time where there's not just one go-to meta. There might be map-dependent metas where you have, like, you take King's Row for example, you have a meta of heroes who work the best on that map. And I mean, it already is to where more of like a Kill Ball, Ryan, Zara, and now Brigitte comp would work better on that than like a Dive comp. And then you have these more open maps where Dive would still be pretty solid, and then you have these heavy like choke point centric maps where a spam kind of comp might work pretty well. And you've got all these options now that I feel like everything has a place in the game, and that's beautiful because this game has always been about counter picking. Like they from the get-go they wanted this game to be like, if you have an enemy, let's say an enemy Winston who's causing the team a whole lot of problems, they've always wanted you to have that option to switch to maybe like a Reaper or Roadhog, or even a Bastion that would pretty much shut down the Winston. And I know it's more complicated than that, because like if you had a Winston and a Tracer on the same team, the Tracer would counter the Bastion, who would be trying to counter a Winston, so it gets a little more complicated than that. But what I'm saying is they've always wanted it to be where teams would adapt onto the fly, and not just, you would not just play one hero throughout the entire game. And I mean, sure, there's a lot of opportunities for you to outplay your counters, but it's getting more towards that side where it might be you could build a whole team to counter a certain problem hero, and they would have to switch, otherwise they'd lose. It used to not be that way. Like for example, you could play a whole lot of soft counters, and I air quote soft counters, to Tracer, and she could still run through your team and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it, because really good Tracers, and this is why she's used so much in the pros, is because she almost basically had a limitless skill ceiling that she could just play around all her counters if she got good enough. And like people say McCree's a counter to Tracer, but really he's not really though. He has one ability that can really harm Tracer, and that's Flashbang. But it's on a 10-second cooldown. Her blinks come back so much faster than a Flashbang would. It's just not even comparable. So you'd have to, that McCree would have to rely on that one single ability to really have a chance against the Tracer, because if she's good enough, she'll just blink around all your shots, and if she even takes a hit, she could recall it off. By the way, McCree can't heal himself, so it takes about 2 clicks for him to go down from her, and that's even at a distance. And not to mention, she could just, if she just baits your flashbang, what do you do then? Maybe you get a couple good shots, but you have to be a better McCree player than that person is a Tracer player to actually counter her, and that's crazy. That should never be how counters work. And I've always believed, like Genji, I know a lot of people have problems with Genji, but I always thought Genji was pretty much fine. I mean, because he has a lot of counterplay when it comes to playing a hero like Pharah can mess through his team, and sometimes he'd have to switch to maybe a hit scan to deal with that. Or if you're in a Winston, if the Winston really focuses on the Trace, or not the Tracer, the Genji, he could really cause Genji's life to be hellish. And even Symmetra on a defense would really cause Genji some issues sometimes. So I always thought Genji was never a huge issue, but Tracer had a way to deal with every hero in the game and basically win every kind of fight. The only way to really take care of Tracers is you'd have to have the whole team try and counter and really focus on her, and even then sometimes it wouldn't work. But if you're having to build a whole team to try and counter someone and it still doesn't work, then that's an issue with balance. And adding someone like Brigitte really helps, because not only does it help shut down Tracers, you could play like Moira and Brigitte, and now you have a hell of a back line right there. Like the supports those are the two most undivable supports in the entire game. And like with that, if you're running Tracer and Genji against that, good luck to you, sir, because you are gonna have some issues. I mean, sure, if you are leagues better than the Brig and Moira player, you might be able to pull it off as Tracer, but now there's a situation here where you would probably have to switch off if you want to win this game, and that's not an issue. I don't know why so many people think that's an issue, that Tracer's this high skill player, it's not fair that Brigitte counters her or shuts her down. Well, welcome to the world of Overwatch. That's how it's been for every character in the game. Every hero has had situations where they would have to switch off if they want to win, and that's where Tracer is now. You can play Tracer perfectly fine in a lot of comps still. There's a lot of situations you can't pull out Tracer and do well with, but if they're running a Brigitte and Moira, then you might have to switch if you want to win, and that's called counter picking. That's what the whole game is about. If you're getting countered, you gotta switch, and that if you were playing Junkrat, right, for example, and sure, you could be doing a good amount of work, but if the enemy goes far and she's really focusing on you and killing you all the time, you can't, you would have to switch to a hit scan if you wanted to win. There's no getting around that. Just because a Tracer player would have to switch to something else to win the match, there's no issue with that. It's called counterpicking. And that's where we're at, I think, with a lot of the heroes. I can't think of any hero where you could just play the whole time in every single map, every comp, and make it work, which is what I used to believe Tracer was that hero that could have done that. Because that's why the pros do it with her. They basically play her on every map, in every comp, in every situation, and that's why she had like a near, close to 90% pick rate at times and stuff, which is absurdly insane. But now we're at a point where that may not be the case, because now, say you're running a heavy dive comp and you've got Tracer, Genji, Winston, Diva, and then the other team maybe picks Hog. They might pick Orisa and Brigitte, McCree. Those are some, and Moira too. Let's throw in Moira too. That's a hell of a comp to counter dive there. And you know what? Maybe you have to switch to more of a range-based comp where you can spam them down from distance. Pull out a Pharah, pull out a Junkrat on that comp or something. Pull out like a Rhine that help them bunker down-ish. I don't know, like that kind of comp would put a hurt on the comp that I just named, and it's to a point now where you can counterpick, and I really love that about the game now. It makes everything feel better, if you will, and I think especially once they finish reworking and balancing some of these lower tier heroes, we might be at a point where certain maps are better for some heroes and certain maps are better for other heroes, and that's great, because that just adds more variety to the game, and adding more variety to the game is just better for it overall. And yeah, I think I've talked enough about that point. I let my mind loose on that one maybe a little too long, but let's move on to something else that I think it's more of like a misunderstanding with the meta, and I kind of get what people are saying about this, but tanks, I understand, like main tanking right now might be a little bit hard, or maybe even unfun for some people, and I do understand that because there has been a lot of CC added. but I think it's been grocery, or I said grocery. I think it's been grossly exaggerated as to how bad it is for main tanks. Because let me run by a couple things with to you guys here. With main tanks, like, there's only been two. Okay, with the new heroes, right? There's only been 2 heroes that have added CC into the game that completely takes away control from your hero for a period of time, and that would be Sleep Dart, that'd be Shield Bash. Those are the only 2 things, unless I'm just forgetting something. Those are the only 2 CC abilities that I can think of that a new hero has added to this game that completely take away control of your character. Because like if you get Shield Bash, you can't shoot them, you can't use your abilities, you can't move, you have no control. And that's fine to have a couple of those things in the game here and there, and it's impactful it's good for that. For the Brigitte player, it helps her really counter certain kind of comps and stuff. And then also Sleep Dart too. It puts you to sleep and you can't really do anything for 5 seconds if no one touches you. I think it's 5 seconds at least. But those are the only 2 CCs that have been added to the game that will completely take away control. Sure, there's been a lot of other CCs like Orissa's Halt, basically all of Doomfist's abilities. I mean, Hack is, I guess you can call that CC, but all of those abilities, you can still have ways to counterplay and fight back while getting hit by them. If you're getting Rising Uppercut, you can still shoot the Doomfist. I mean, you could still flash them. If you have some kind of, like if you're Hanzo, you can now mid-air dodge out of it, and that's kind of crazy. But there's all these other things in the games that you can still counterplay. I mean, if you get hacked, you can still use all your primary fire. What was the other one? Oh yeah, if I'm like Halt, I mean, you still can use your abilities, you can still shoot, you just get pulled in a certain direction for a period of time, and that, I mean, I think it's been grossly exaggerated, the amount of like CC that's been added to the game. And sure, there are some pretty heavy CC comps you can run, which is crazy, but I think main tanking is a little bit misunderstood in this, and I think a lot of people find it unfun because of the amount of CC, and I think people are kind of underestimating that because of that, in a sense, and because of the way the direction Overwatch is taking. Main tanking is actually becoming more important than it used to be. I mean, say the enemy's running Brigitte, for example. I mean, that's a heavy comp right there. That has, I mean, she has a good amount of CC. But if you're main tanking against that playing Ryan, honestly, that's one of the best tanks for handling a Brigitte, because you can up close brawl with her just fine with that. And if you're playing Reinhardt really well, you can make a lot of great plays that if you're playing better than the other Ryan, you'll still really help your team. I mean, a lot of what you do as Ryan is still crazy important to the game, and I think a lot of people are forgetting that. And with all this CC, it's making it main tanking, like the people who have more skill to handle that kind of opposition are really rising up, and I think that's what's been misunderstood about this, and it's making front lines a lot better is what I'm trying to say. It's because you have these hefty back lines, so these front lines are having to really perform. And I guess, okay, so I guess that's it for my last point, and I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of discussion based video. Anyway, thank you for watching, and have a good day. Science has proven that generosity leads to happiness, so if you're feeling generous, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching the video. Take care and peace, people.